All right. Okay. Well, we've got a number of participants here right on the dot to get started with us. And so excited to have everybody. We're going to give it just another minute while people are filtering in. You won't be able to see or hear each other, but if anybody has a comment or a question, you can drop it in the QA. Um, oh, hey, great attendance. We love that for us. Oh, everyone got really quiet.
I know. It's, you have these sessions and everyone's like, "Hey, hi, hi." And
I know. Maybe next time we won't. All of the attendees will be muted and they will be off camera. So we won't be able to see or hear them. But if you drop a question in QA, I'll be able to see it and relay that to our panelists. Um, we're a couple minutes after, and we've got the majority of folks who have RSVP'd in the participants. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. We're really excited for this conversation because unrentable units are kind of one of those operational challenges that almost every operator deals with, but not always kind of in a structured or visible way. And especially heading into peak season, I think every offline unit really matters. So today is going to be a really practical discussion around what operators are actually doing to reduce unrentables, improve their accountability, create some visibility, and get units back into inventory faster. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jessie Lamb. I'm the Vice President of Self-Storage at NodaFi. We're a facility operations and maintenance software company. And I've worked in the industry for almost a decade as an operator and now as a vendor helping other operators build out and streamline their maintenance programs. I'm especially excited to be joined in this discussion by our esteemed panelist. Um, Christina Rita is the Chief Operating Officer of StoragePRO Management, one of the largest privately owned self-storage management companies in the United States. They provide comprehensive third-party services for self-storage owners nationwide. She's an industry veteran with extensive operational leadership experience, and Christina is known for her practical and process-driven approach to property management, team development, and operational excellence. With
thank you.
us also, yeah, we're so happy to have you.
Welcome.
Um, with us also, Dr. Tosha Giuffrida is the Vice President of Operations for Derrel's Mini Storage, where she leads operational strategy, team development, and process improvement across the organization with a background spanning higher education, hospitality, and private industry. She's particularly passionate about leveraging her technology to improve employee experiences, operational efficiency, and organizational performance. Tasha holds both an MBA and a doctorate in educational leadership, and we're really excited to have her join us here today. Hi, Tasha.
Hello.
Our goal today is really simple. We're going to share real processes and real lessons that we've learned, practical ideas that you guys can take back to your teams. So thank you all for being here. For those of you who are just now joining us, all attendees are going to be off camera and muted. So if you have a question, we welcome it. If you drop it into the Q&A, I will relay it to our panelists. But let's go ahead and just jump right in and ask the money question first, because I think that's the one that everybody is, that's the bread and butter, right? Is we rent storage units and that's how we make our living. Otherwise, we'd be selling flowers on the roadside. So, what I guess I'm going to open it up with what the true operational cost of unrentables that maybe most operators underestimate is.
Well, I mean, I'll just start with kind of some high level numbers that sometimes we don't think about when we're talking about unrentable units, but your customer lifetime value can be anywhere from $1,500 to $3,500. I think right now with StoragePro we're at about 3,100, and you've got an average customer length of stay, 14 to 19 months. If it's a business partner, I mean, they could be staying upwards of 60 months, right? And so you just start doing the math on all those numbers, and every single unit that's offline, I mean, that's just dollars and dollars just going to the wayside that you don't have product available for your customers. And so I think it's really important that when we're looking at our inventory and what we have available and we don't have available, just kind of referencing some of those numbers that that's a lot of money. I mean, I'll take that any day. That'll help grow your bottom line in no time, right? So, I mean, I think that's just my 2 cents there with kind of the revenue piece.
Yeah, I think in addition to all those great points that Christina pointed out, it's also like with planning, right? So if you think you've got all these units filled, but they're just not running because they're unrentable, but at the same time you're also planning for future development, that's also a huge piece of it. That needing to be able to track those things accurately is critical, to your bottom line and to the way your business operates.
I think inventory projection and planning is a really interesting call out there for a lost opportunity with unrentables. Um, and I think that, your point, Christina, that, that money really adds up, especially over a big portfolio, even if it's only a few units at each property, can be real big dollars. I think are great call outs.
Well, I think even a small property. I mean, sometimes the smaller properties, it impacts, that property even more so than, maybe a larger property. And, over the last few months, pardon me, I don't know the exact time frame, Jesse, but we've partnered with NodaFi, and we're using your folks' platform that's kind of helping even shed even more light as to what pennies that turn into dollars are we leaving on the table, and it's a system that's allowing us to kind of manage that even more effectively than we have in the past. And I'd like to say that, I think we're doing a pretty good job with it. But there's always, lots and lots of opportunity. And when you get a product like NodaFi or, other systems, you really start to see, wow, that's a lot I'm leaving on the table. And what do I need to do about it, right? So just a little, unsolicited plug to
I was
NodaFi,
going to say,
you guys.
thank you so much. We appreciate the shout out.
Well, and it
Um,
also the system allows you to project, right? So you can get a better idea of, why units are offline, or what's making them that's unrentable. Is there a commonality between it? Is there something of a piece of material that you might be using that's consistent across different locations? And then be able to record and put some projections for, cap improvements and so forth. So it does allow that ability to do that as well.
well, thank you for the kind shout out. I appreciate it. I do think that opens up, perfectly where I was going to take this next, which is, when you have that kind of visibility into your unrentables and you're tracking, what's causing it, are you finding that there are um, common kind of root causes of the majority of your unrentables? And if so, what are those and how are you addressing those quickly to get those units back online?
Yeah, I think, for us, our portfolio is pretty expansive. And, we have facilities that are a lot older and facilities that are newer. So of course we will start seeing some commonalities amongst, older facilities. But sometimes it's not even that big of a deal. Sometimes it's something that's real simple, like customer ran into the door, right? Or those types of things that you might realize maybe previously where it'd have taken a while to have gotten around to fixing the issue. Being able to see that on a portfolio-wide report, what those commonalities are, and then have the ability to strategically either plan for a full replacement of things versus the one-off fixing things. So
No, and I mean, I'll just add that, I was with a REIT and, for many, many years. I've been here with StoragePRO for many, many years. And it's accountability. It's ensuring that, it's visible to everybody, and everyone's kind of focused and looking at it because it's very easy to say, hey, you know what? I've got this one junk and haul unit. I'll take care of it. I'm just gonna put it on, maintenance and take it offline for a little bit. And then what happens? You get, comfortable and, let me add, I found a couple more things on the property, or I found this, or, and it becomes a bigger project, and then it becomes even more, expensive. So I just I like to we review it every single week. We go through our portfolio and we're looking to see, what is on unrentable, why is on our maintenance, whatever, for whatever bucket you put them in, why, and then kind of then looking at, the tiering and what are the next steps. So first is identifying the issue, and then secondly is, okay, what's the plan? And do we need to move quickly? We've kind of got a threshold that if you're under 3 units, that's kind of an emergency, right? I've got to get that back online because I've got customers that want to rent that size code, right? If I've got 15, 20, well, then you know what? Maybe I can bucket a couple together and get a vendor who's when they're in the area and get some economy of scale. And so I've got a little more time. But I still want to be aware of that, and I want my teams to be aware of it, because out of sight, out of mind, and then
Yeah.
just it grows more and more, right?
I think you called out a couple of really interesting points there. The I think that not all unrentables are created equal. So,
Yeah.
if you have none left and those are a really high demand unit and you have three unrentable, you know that if you got them back online, they would rent right away. Those are that's a house on fire, right? Like that's a you gotta get those back today. Where, sometimes you'll have lease up, right? And you've got 20 more in the back of the building and you don't, if one of them is unrentable, maybe that can wait for a minute to group those together into a contract price for a
Yep.
customer.
And that might sound like common sense to some people, but to other folks, it's like, I didn't think about it that way. I never looked at it in that aspect. And, you're talking about dollars, right? It's dollars to get it back online and rent it. It's dollars of what it costs to get it, taken care of. Is it something, simple? So, I mean, that's where you really want to be strategic and efficient and getting the product back online.
Which types of units tend to sit unrentable the longest? I guess let me rephrase. I've had the experience of walking onto a property and saying, okay, we have 10 by 30s are the most popular unit at this property. They're 100% occupied except for this one unrentable unit. What the heck, guys? Why? And having them say, oh, well, that's been, full of tires. I said, and it's really
Yeah.
expensive to junk haul them, right? I said, okay, how long has it been sitting offline? Oh, 2 years. I'm
You
like,
just
you know
pay
what?
for your tires recycling, right?
So, have you run across kind of a long unrentable unit or and had to kind of maybe do some coaching in the moment about the cost versus,
Well,
that
for us,
thinking?
sometimes it's, dependent on location, right? Dependent on size. Sometimes something can be where it's not moving. I want to say where it's eligible to rent, but for whatever reason isn't renting, right? I think that's a little bit different. And we could look at, is it this particular size? Do we need to convert the size, make it smaller, larger, whatever the case might be? So, versus like what you were saying, Jessie, if it's something that's completely offline because you can't rent it, uh, and looking at those reasons why is it's not as simple as fixing the door. It's like go get the mattresses out of the unit and haul them away type of a thing. So yeah.
Yeah, no, and I would just piggyback and say, you're both absolutely right. I think, that's why we look in our, at Storage Pro, we look at it every week. because it adds up quickly. There's coaching, and rather it's thinking like an owner and really understanding the business aspect of it. But sometimes it's also why are auction buyers so successful? I wouldn't know what the heck where to sell this at or to sell that at, and it amazes me, right? When they just know how they can get the biggest bang for their buck. But so it's like tires or light bulbs or mattresses is helping our team to be resourceful. And it's not just a matter of maybe getting a junk and hauler or throwing it in your trash can or ordering a spring, but coaching your team as to how to be more resourceful and what are the economy of scales and thinking outside the box a little bit. So it's fun to kind of when we pick up a new property and you see some of these. And it's like, wow, really? You guys have had, tires in your unit for that long? Well, have you thought about, partnering with, your local tire shop or la di da di da? And that's what's impactful, I think, with teams.
Mhm.
I think that that kind of uh, process or that process of thinking that you're just describing for resolving unrentables, thinking outside the box, using your resources. Tosha, evaluating, do we even want to put this back online as is, or do we want to resize, reshape, split the unit, or convert it in some way to be more rentable and more, desirable inventory when it gets back online? That's ownership thinking from both of you that I think comes with your long experience of running these big portfolios where maybe you've had the experience, Christina, of having multiple big tire units and having to work through all kinds of oddball solutions,
So,
right? To find the magic ticket for that one
well, is what I
property.
really want to say is I was going to find the nearest Derrells and just maybe kind of, dump
Rent a
them,
unit.
pull up the truck and, just kind of dump them in the back and then run and not tell Tasha.
So Tasha, if you get any new tire unit,
Right? I know exactly where to go.
I don't know what you're talking about.
straight to the StoragePRO down the street.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Oh goodness. Um, what operational habits or processes, so speaking of like the experience that you both have, because you both are, very seasoned operators, what operational practices and or kind of best practices um, maybe
Sorry, my
prevent, yeah,
lights went
prevent.
off.
Oh, sorry.
Thought you were setting the mood.
Oh, my auto
You want to
lights
be
went
used for
off.
the motion sensor.
Yeah,
You turn Tasha just for 1 second, turned into a wacky waving inflatable tube
yeah,
man.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Um, what kind of best practices have you seen that prevent unrentables and or the flip side of that question, if you want to take it there, what kind of practices have you seen that tend to create them?
It's a good question. From the flip side perspective, I know I'll say old practices versus new practices, right? So, without the ability to have a system like NodaFi, where you have multiple points of view, multiple people who can look into the system, you definitely, leave yourself vulnerable to on-site managers being able to take units offline, not thinking about it. Oh, I'll get to that later, or, I'll clean the stall later, maybe, or it's something as simple as that, just cleaning it up. Um, and and so I think that is something like having Notify gives us the ability to have multiple sets of eyes on it. So it's not just one person. Especially if you're looking at, like a smaller operator, if you're, just have one team who might have a little bit more control and think they can get away with things, or they have, their personal things in a unit, that type of a thing. To be able to have that audit ability.
Well,
Yeah, I would piggyback
stop.
and I would, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say stop, but keep saying more nice things.
No,
I do
I agree
appreciate the
wholeheartedly
perspective.
with Tasha. I think it's what gets inspected gets respected. It just goes back to that accountability piece, and I think it's important that you're pulling your reports, you're familiar, with what's going on with the property. I sincerely believe people want to do well, and I just keep going back to sometimes they just don't know how, and it's really empowering them and helping them. And so even little things like, we do regular frequent site visits, and then, we'll do an audit every quarter from management level. And at the property, they're doing a unit audit every month. And, as what we like to do is you don't have the same person doing the unit audit every month. You switch it up. So then that way, Jessie can't be, hiding that same unit, and not because she wants to, but because she doesn't know what to do with the tires, right? And you get, another set of eyes and so forth, right? I think also, looking, have you had a unit that's been unrentable or, for a very long time, or maybe even vacant for a very long time? Because sometimes, because on the flip side, because we're so hyper focused on those unrentable maintenance units, then they don't want to put them on maintenance or unrentable. And so then you're losing that visibility as to what product is truly offline. So I think that's where these unit audits and so forth can really help us to ensure that, we all have the best interest of the property.
Yeah. It's interesting. I can think of examples like where we have like you said, a unit that might, for whatever reason, that unit just doesn't rent. And so on paper, you can just see, oh, well, yeah, you've got one available. For whatever reason, it's not renting. And then you realize, oh, well, we don't rent that one out because it tends to, I don't know, gather water in front of it. And it's like, well, why didn't anybody let us know? We can fix that, So again, like going back to Christina's point, the accountability piece and the communication piece too, amongst not just the operations side, but for us, it's across the board with our construction department and so forth. It's it's really opening up those doors with it for the communication piece.
And sometimes just a simple exercise. Take that unit that, hasn't rented and, help, your manager say, hey, here's the potential rent we could get. Here's how much it's going to cost us to repair it. Here's your return on investment. And, sometimes dollar signs, say a
Yeah,
lot. And it's like, wow, I never thought about it in that, that light. So.
And I think that is that mo ownership mindset and experience or experienced perspective that I was speaking to earlier from both of you, where, if you are a manager and you're like, I will clean that block of units later, or I'm waiting for Thursday because that is when my, assistant manager is going to be here and they're going to clean it on Thursday of next week and it's Wednesday. You're like, okay, so you're holding these units over the weekend where they could potentially be rented, right? What if the customer who wants to rent those units comes on Saturday?
Yeah.
And you're walking by money or leaving money on the table, and maybe you don't ever get that opportunity again. Now, you
Yep.
probably will at some point, but you
Mhm.
could have lost your potential. You said your lifetime value of your customer is
Yep.
$3,500.
Yep.
I think people don't always think about, getting while the getting's good. You need that
Yep. Yep.
inventory ready when the customer is there. So, the
absolutely. Yeah. Otherwise, they're just going to go down the street.
yep.
Yeah. I don't know if I mean, I hate to admit, but I mean, I remember times where, Christina was too busy watching a football game on Sunday when she was supposed to be cleaning out, units. And Tasha goes to show a unit and is embarrassed because it's like, oh, wow, my assistant manager here forgot to, sweep it out or so forth. It just goes to, you want to have clean, safe, secure, you've got a reputation, right? I mean, Derrel's has, Joe's StoragePRO management, and we want to be able to continue that and give great service.
You mentioned pulling some reporting and looking at reporting around unrentables. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to, what reports you pull, what KPIs you're looking at, and what some red flags would be that would tell you that maybe the inventory of a property is being mismanaged.
Well, I'd say for, I mean, we've got some internal dashboards that, we look at, very regularly, every day, and on a weekly basis. We're looking to see if things have, are trending, higher or lower. But we're looking at inventory control like company spaces, to make sure, somebody's not, instead of putting it on maintenance, they're putting it on as a company space. We're looking at, our reports that are showing how long a unit's been, vacant for, how long a unit's been on unrentable. And then we require our managers to kind of fill in some information in our Hummingbird system to, what's going on? Why are the units indeed offline? And do they need to take a partner? And so for us, looking at those reports on a regular basis and having conversations, our district managers with our store managers, is allowing us to, truly understand, what the opportunity is, and then ensuring that we've got an action plan and that we're all in agreement with it, right? And if we don't, we're not able to accomplish it, maybe the vendor wasn't in the area, they had an emergency call, what's the next follow-up? How do we reschedule that? So for us, we're looking at, those kind of key reports on a daily basis, and we're really digging into them on a weekly basis. And then on a monthly basis, that's kind of where, as the executive leadership team, it's, we're just looking at, hey, have we moved the needle, and have we not gone backwards? So for instance, not to blabber on a little bit, but before the summer surge is what we call it, we do a full, complete, we get an operations member with the store manager, do a complete walk of the property, and we're rolling every single unit to make sure, it's rent ready, the doors are, lubed. So, some preventative maintenance, I think, is something that we talk about all the time for, our doors, and when we do our unit audits once a month, you're re-sweeping out the unit and so forth. Things like that, I think, help us really keep our maintenance units pretty low.
Yeah, I would just add to, Christina, when you mentioned the preventive maintenance, one of the things that we use Notify for is our, not in addition to the walkthroughs, right, is also those reminder tags that had previously lived in people's Outlook calendars as reminders, right?
Post-it notes, pieces of
Post-it notes.
paper.
Oh yeah, it's July. We need to change the filter, or whatever the case might be. And being able to really, you know, use the system to track it, right? To remind people of it, and also to create that visibility. So, those are the things I also look for, is how many of those outstanding items are they cleared? How quickly are they responded to? Are there particular locations that have just a ton of outstanding? And what's going on? Why aren't they doing the preventative maintenance? So, I think all of those pieces will eventually hit that bottom line, right? Like what Christina says, the last thing you want is to go into the peak of rental season and you can't rent a unit because a door hadn't been maintained, which would have been really simple to do. So.
Oh, and I mean, I will tell I'm blue in the face. Preventative maintenance is a big, big, big piece of it. And, it's just like your gates at your property, right? You got a vendor maybe doing a door repair. It's like, hey, can you lube this? A can of lube, cleaning the tracks, it goes a long ways. And, so we really ensure we have that in our operations, handbook as to, hey, here's how you clean a unit, here's preventive maintenance that needs to be done. It's just like your car, right? If you maintain your car, it's going to last you a whole heck of a lot longer than if you don't do the regular services, right? Our properties are no different.
So I love the way that you guys took this conversation, because we went from how do we identify that we have a problem and where do we look and how do we measure it, right? Once we have unrentables, you kind of spoke to how you resolve them as far as, looking at evaluating, is this something we need to do right away, hair on fire, get it back online? Or is it something we maybe think outside of the box, find a creative solution, group this together, and have one vendor do everything in the area so we can negotiate a good price? And evaluating that kind of cost. And then took it back to how do we prevent unrentables in the first place, which I think is, again, just a really great global perspective that we hope that the majority of our unrentable inventory can be avoided. And I love that you spoke to cleaning tracks, lubing cylinders, and I'm going to have to say it because say it on every single webinar I'm on about maintenance. Don't put WD-40 on your doors. Use silicone spray. If anybody is out there, it will make your life so much easier and reduce your repair bills and increase the longevity of your doors. So that is my one contribution to this brilliant discussion. Can't keep
Even make sure your managers know how to drill out locks, right? So you're not constantly replacing hasp and have them on maintenance, huh?
Yeah. Yes. Well, so what are some other tips that you have found, with your either with your preventative maintenance or with training or with, tips from your SOP that you wrote, Christina, for folks on how to clean units, for reducing unrentable inventory?
I think the big thing is just that response time. You know what I mean? In terms of tips, the idea of just something like I'll get to it later. Even when you have extra inventory, like on a lease up, yes, I get the fact that you won't respond to it immediately because you've got, 20 of the size available, but being able to track the fact that you might have a unit out there that say just needs cleaning, and tracking how long that response time is a key to having that successful operations.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, you know, I think I'll go back to knowledge is power. It's not a bad thing to have a unit on maintenance. Okay. I think is what is, what can turn into an issue is not, acknowledging it and letting it just go on and on and on, because then it gets worse and worse. And that unit that probably would have cost you $100 to junk and haul is now, $5,000, right? Because you've just continued to let it be your one all be all. And then it's like, holy moly, So, I think the knowledge is power is key. Whenever we hire any employee, we kind of go through a whole, how do you clean a unit? What are some preventative maintenance items? That's really important. We have a checklist that we teach our teams that. And then it's just, part to always take a partner, when you're not sure, take a partner. And, maybe for smaller owners and smaller facilities that are, just moms and pops, there's, that's one great thing about this industry is everybody always wants to help one another. I mean,
Mhm.
partner with, a facility, next to you or somebody else in the industry. Because if you don't have the answer, I'm sure somebody else does. And so I think that's really, really important. I think there's lots of great software out there. NodaFi is one of them that can really help give more visibility and help you stay on track with tasks and so forth. So, it's looking at, what are additional systems and processes that you can add to help make things easier for you.
Yeah, and I love how you said don't be afraid to ask, right? And I think that's so key, whether it's the facility manager who needs to ask questions, you're so much better off to do that. And it is kind of a weird industry. I mean, I call competitors all the time and ask for advice, and we just give it out to each other, which is fantastic. And but that's what's neat about it. It's a large industry with a small family like atmosphere.
Yeah, no, I mean, sometimes, we've got some properties that are in, very, rural areas and whatnot, and you partner with, the facility across the street or so forth and say, hey, I've got this and that, got a vendor coming out. Do you have any needs? And sometimes, you've got some economy of scales that way. So, it's not necessarily just for the big operators, but it's,
Yeah.
even the individual operators. So, really thinking outside the box as well as, how can you get that 3,500 lifetime value for every single unit, right? You just cha-ching, cha-ching.
Well, I love that idea. So I just wanted to call back to that, which is, we are a very friendly industry. So calling your neighbors, asking for help, but also asking, if an HVAC tech is going to give you a break if you have 20 properties for them to service, and you've got 10 in the region, calling your neighbor and saying, hey, you got 10, I got 10. Let's, get a little break on this service and get these people out here. So I think that's brilliant. And I love the collaboration in our industry. I love the collaboration between you two. That's why I invited you to speak on this, because I know that you've worked very closely. You spoke to reducing, just a critical piece being reducing the amount of time that an unrentable sits. Um, and I know part of that are things that we have control over internally, right? It's our people being deployed and cleaning, and maybe they can change out a hasp or a rope or, tension a door or do those kind of things. But there are things that require vendors. And when you are dependent on other people to get your inventory back online, sometimes that could be a little bit tricky. So I was wondering if you could speak to, some of the pain of vendor management, or hiccups that you've had with vendor management, and how maybe you've overcome those to help get your inventory back online faster.
I'll just add to that with prior to NodaFi, some of that vendor management piece and communication was always just done through like emails, right? Or phone calls with either the facility or one other person. And so there was not the visibility from overhead on, gosh, was that person called? What was their response time? And so on and so forth. And we've actually been able to utilize NodaFi to coordinate those vendor calls and get the vendors themselves on the system so we can track. I don't have to go and call people for statuses. I can just log in and say, oh, this is where it's at. And I think that that has been a great, solution to a previous challenge when it comes to vendor management.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's all about the tools, right? And you know, fortunately, we do have an in-house maintenance team, so that kind of helps us tremendously. But just like our customers, they pay who they like, first and so forth, right? Vendor management is key. You want to make sure that you have a good relationship with your vendors. A lot of these vendors are this is their bread and butter, their mom and pops, and so you want to make sure, you have a relationship with them, you're paying them timely. And then a lot of times, just think, can your landscaper also do a little bit of this? Can your gate vendor do a little bit of that? So you don't just have, oh, I got to call the vendor for this, I got to call the vendor for that. You've got someone that, kind of multi. And then always have, more than one. We're constantly adding new vendors to the mix, and it's healthy competition as well. And sometimes it creates a little more urgency that, hey, I've got to get to Tasha quickly, or she's going to call Jessie, and or I've got to make sure my cost is a little better because Jessie's going to undercut me. So I think some of those things are really key and help us in the financial aspect of bringing units back online.
I think that that is a fabulous call out. And I know that it has saved me so many times to have great relationships with my vendors, and also kind of honest and open relationships with my vendors, that I do have a pool. I have a pool of vendors, and that I
Good.
call multiple people. So, don't get too comfy and start and start overcharging me, sir. Um, so yeah, I think having a great relationship with your vendors, and also maybe again, just I think that comes with experience, thinking outside of the box, for maybe a somebody who is at your property anyway, can do additional services that will you know save you a trip charge, especially if it's a small job and you just need hands to do it. Um, it can be really cost prohibitive to have somebody come out to the property just to adjust a door, or, to do something simple that maybe just takes a really tall ladder and somebody willing to get up on the roof to do it. Um, so I
Or
think that
sometimes even, I mean, sometimes it's looking at your local garbage company, and do they have services available? And, is it cheaper to get an extra garbage pickup than, than having a vendor, come out and, clean out the unit for you. So, that kind of goes back to, just the resourcefulness and having conversations with others, store manager to store manager, different properties, different operators. I didn't invent all these best practices I have. It's, I picked them up along the way, kind of interacting and watching others. And, it makes us better and better and helps, me make those around me better and better. So.
well, I think that's, such a great call out and appreciate you sharing your wisdom. So in that vein, the next couple of questions are more for smaller operators, um, who maybe don't have maintenance teams, are reliant on vendors or, the pool of vendors that they have or the labor that they have on site. What advice would you give to folks who are, you know, just getting started with, either just bought a property that has unrentable inventory, or maybe they had a manager that wasn't great at maintaining their inventory and they find themselves with a lot of unrentable units? What would they do first?
Yeah, well, I say first off, obviously you got to do that major audit, right? And really get a general sense of where you're at. I would also say a second thing to avoid is having something that's just a to-do list that's going to get lost. Personally, it's having the overarching system that gives you the ability to not only track, it gives you the ability to forecast, to categorize, and to get a handle and hopefully be able to sync with your operating system to be able to see, that everything's on the same page. So you're not reconciling this sheet with this sheet with this sheet and this sheet that just takes up so much valuable time. So yeah, I mean, really, it's getting a gist of what those issues are, and are there any commonalities between them? It could be as simple as the previous owner was using WD-40, and now
You got gummy doors.
no, yeah, no, that's a consistent issue. Then there you go.
I agree 100% with you, Tasha. I think it's, you've got to go in there, assess the situation, and, then you're going to put things in buckets, right? If it's only a onesie twosie, great. That's easier to kind of put a plan. But, sometimes you've got to identify, I've got 10 units that are just, I have 100 of them. It's fine. I've got these that I've got to get back right away. And then, my only other, kind of best practice is don't settle for your first estimate. Okay. If you've got multiple units and so forth, don't be afraid to get a couple estimates. And just because, Jessie gives you one estimate and Tasha gives you another, you can't go back and say, hey, you know what?
Negotiate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's where it goes back to that vendor relations, and when you have more, you're kind of in a position of power, and don't be afraid to use it. It's going to help you at the end of the day what you're taking to the bank, right?
I think that's such great insight from both of you. Thank you. I think the only thing that I would um, maybe add to that is um, I think I was afraid when I first got started to touch anything because I was sure I would break it. And I'm a pretty handy person, but for some reason I just had it in my mind that these were like very specialized skills that only very, fancy trained people with trade school degrees in storage doors could touch. And
Yeah.
I had a wonderful maintenance supervisor. His name is Gary Garcia. He still works at Strat, and he said, "Girl, you don't call a vendor for that." Like I was new to operations. He's, "Girl, you don't call a vendor for that. anyone can do that. Let me let me show you how. So, if you are a smaller operator and don't have maintenance experience, I would call your neighbors in your area. If they have veteran managers, they definitely know how to do things like change hasps, lube doors, change weather stripping, probably tension doors, um, and do all kinds of minor repairs around the property. And we'll be so happy to share knowledge. And which is, again, just one of the really great things about our industry. We don't.
Even your vendors, watch the vendor, so you pay him one time to come, lube the doors, change a hasp, they'll show you the right tools you need. Because I think that, for me was always a pain changing hasps. It was like, oh, this is so painful because I didn't have the right tools. And then when you had the right tools, it was like, oh, this is a piece of cake, no wonder, so
Yeah.
don't be afraid to, hang out with your vendor for a little bit and watch how, they do some of these, smaller, simpler tasks.
Yeah, and most of them don't want that work. So
Yeah.
they are they are
Yeah.
more than happy to show you how to do, little preventative maintenance
Yeah.
jobs with the
Yep.
idea that they're building a relationship, so they'll come back and do bigger jobs for you. So
Yep.
that is such a great call out, Christina. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
What about for a bigger operator? So if you are enterprise size, like the two of you both run very sizable portfolios, and you find yourself with a very high unrentable inventory, sometimes it just gets out of hand, or we're focused on something else. We take our eye off the ball for a minute, we look back, boom, you know, how would you advise, like what advice would you give um, somebody who is starting with a basically from scratch with a mountain of unrentables?
Well, if it's unrentable truly because of like a maintenance issue, right? Versus just it's just not renting off the shelf. I think those are two different situations. But for this purposes, to me, it's would be more of from a maintenance perspective. I think it's looking at your procedures, looking at what kind of what Christina was saying for your preventative maintenance, what's going on, what's causing it to be unrentable. Is it something that's is there a similarity, a commonality between it? Is it could be a super easy fix. And then also, like you said, maybe it's not something you need to call the vendor, but is it something you can like a one-time, get a there's lots of handymen out there, lots of just kind of one-offs, not just even big corporations, big companies that can come in and it's be worth it to you to spend the money to get it done and then rent it, I mean, for every day those are just sitting offline, you're losing money.
Yep. No, I agree 100%. It's what's the root cause so that you can prevent it from happening in the future. It is what it is now, and you've got to get a budget and get a plan in place. What's the next action steps and whatnot. But I think it's always important is why did we get here? How are we here today, and what do we learn from it so that tomorrow we don't make the same mistakes, and then the cycle doesn't consistently repeat itself.
I think that that is such a great call out. So I heard you say, you know, Tasha, getting your arms around, what is your unrentable inventory? Why is it unrentable? Grouping those into, can we just clean it and get it back online? Is it, a little maintenance thing that somebody on site can do? Is it a vendor thing? Group those into jobs. Um, so once you have all of that information, you can assign out that work, track it through to completion, and get those back online, hopefully expeditiously, because we don't have a whole lot of summer left in our summer surge, Miss Christina.
No, that's true. I don't know. I think it rained a little bit the other day here where I'm at. I was like, what did that come from? We're in June. I thought May showers, well, rainbow showers
Bring
bring May
flowers.
flowers. I don't know why we still have rain.
Oh my goodness. Um, well, both of you have shared so extensively. I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and advice. I just want to open it up. We've got a good amount of participants on the call. If anybody has any questions and for our panelists and wants to drop those into chat before we break, we're going to open it up for Q&A.
I only answer questions for 49er fans, so they have to specify, okay? No, I'm just
You
kidding.
have to declare your allegiance in the chat. That's funny because I only relay questions from Texans fans. So
You got to have a little fun, right?
Tasha's agnostic.
Well, this has been great. It's always fun when we can kind of talk about, things in the industry, and it's nice to hear kind of some, similarities that we do, and maybe how we do things a little differently, and we're still able to, accomplish the same results. So that's always, fun to learn in this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I love that. Thank you both so much for being on today and for sharing your knowledge and your expertise, your perspective, the benefit of your experience. I really appreciate it. And we will be doing one of these webinars every month, different topics, different guests. Although I am hoping that Christina and Tosha might make a callback appearance at some point on our schedule because they're lovely and um, very, very willing to open-hearted and willing to share with any operator. So I would suggest if you enjoyed the content today that you join us for future webinars and also that you reach out to Tosha, Christina, or myself if you have questions or um, just want a perspective check because we would definitely reach out to you. So,
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
all right. Thank you guys. Take
All right,
care.
you
Okay.
take care. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.